Okay, everybody, hi, and welcome to the Climate Change CDC. So the first item on the agenda then is any apologies for absence.
Apology from Mark Wade.
The second then is, are there any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests?
I always get wrong. Yes, I just wanted to declare one interest, which is personal, and I work for the Pembrokeshire Care Trust, which obviously does quite a lot of work in nature recovery.
Okay. Third item on the agenda then is, can we approve the minutes of the 20th of July meeting? So I just need and can somebody second those? Thank you.
I'll second them.
Thank you. All in favour? Okay, thank you. The fourth item and the main item on the agenda then is the delivering on nature recovery and climate change status report. So I'll be handing it over to Paul Mellor, who is the Natural Environment Manager. So you're going to give an introduction first, and then there are three main items, I believe, to discuss. So I'll leave it over to Paul to give an introduction.
Thank you, Chair. So this evening we're going to focus in on the nature recovery element of the nature recovery and climate change corporate priority, focusing on three key strategies that are driving forward the work of the team and a number of projects that they are delivering on the ground. I'll just do a brief introduction, and then in turn I'll pass on to the respective leads for those strategies. Essentially, there's the Local Nature Recovery Action Plan, which is Swansea Nature Partnerships plan, and it's a collaborative plan covering the whole of the county. We have the Local Nature Partnership Coordinator with us tonight. Well, actually, it's a job share between Christina Derrick and Mark Barber, both of whom will be speaking. That's an ongoing project at the moment, working with a number of workshops, which Christina will talk about. We then have the Section 6 plan. It's it explains what the council have been doing to meet its statutory duty in relation to biodiversity, and we have a report to prepare by the end of this year. And then finally we'll move on to the county-wide green infrastructure strategy, which is a joint project with Natural Resources Wales, and we'll have Penny Griffith who will lead us through that. So if I could first all then introduce you to Christina Derrick, and the local, and she'll talk about the Local Nature Recovery Action Plan.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Just confirm. Yeah. So I'm Christina, and as Paul said, myself and Mark Barber job share the Local Nature Partnership Coordinator role. So to give you a bit of a background on the Local Nature Recovery Action Plans, so they are non-statutory partnership plans that will replace Local Biodiversity Action Plans, or LBAPs. So they are produced by local nature partnerships, and these are voluntary partnerships, usually consisting of environmental NGOs, community groups, and organisations with statutory conservation duties that operate within the limits of a local authority or national park. So in Swansea's case, the Swansea Local Nature Recovery, Local Nature Recovery Action Plan is produced by the Swansea LNP, which consists of around 50 member organisations, of which the council is a key and host member. So the need for local nature recovery plans stem from the Nature Recovery Action Plan for Wales, which is the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan for Wales under the UN Environment Programme's Convention on Biological Diversity's Strategic Plan for Biodiversity. So the NRAP for Wales sets out 6 objectives for nature recovery and is complemented by 5 themes of actions aimed at addressing issues that are driving decline in biodiversity and to support nature recovery. And then, so local nature recovery plans, or LNRAPs, are one of the delivery mechanisms to meet these national objectives, while also coordinating delivery of nature recovery action that addresses local priorities. And these local priorities could be identified from a variety of sources. And some examples for Swansea would include Natural Resources Wales area statements, previous biodiversity plans, the Swansea Wellbeing Assessment and Wellbeing Plan, as well as community engagement, and then local experts. So in terms of the Swansea Local Nature Recovery Plan, regarding content, the plan intends to firstly outline the extent and state of nature within Swansea. It then intends to highlight why nature and nature recovery matter. It will then identify local priorities for action to meet national nature recovery objectives and set out how the Swansea LNP intends to work towards achieving them. It will also outline how the public can take action to assist nature recovery in Swansea, and then set out a format for monitoring and reporting actions, and then progress towards achieving nature recovery. So we're hoping to use a website format for the Swansea LNRAP, as we think this is more accessible and will be easier to update. One of our colleagues in Rhondda and Taff has already done this for their LNRAP, and it seems to work quite well. So, and then currently it's proposed that the local nature recovery plan will set out high-level action themes for how the Swansea LNP plan on meeting national nature recovery objectives. So it's intended that these action themes would be a set of common goals at a high level that would guide specific project delivery from the local nature partnership, as well as directing or informing other plans or strategies that would feed into the LNRAP, such as Section 6 plans. And these action themes will be a link to the 6 objectives for Wales, and where relevant, they'll also identify where they contribute to the 5 themes of actions and also area statement themes and challenges. So in terms of progress up until now, an initial but incomplete framework was set out to LNP members in July 2022. Written feedback was received from at least 17 members and 7 different organisations in September 2022. And then following on from this, 2 workshops with LNP members are being held. So these were open to all LNP members, and around 20 people have volunteered to attend and discuss and further refine the local nature recovery plan. The first of these was held at the end of September, where 10 members attended, and the second is intended to be held at the end of October, where we're expecting a similar number of attendees. So feedback from the 2 workshops will be collated with the written feedback and shared with the LNP, and then this will go on then to shape the redraft of the plan, which will be kind of starting from the end of October then. And yeah, that's it from me for the minute.
Okay, thank you for that. Oh, sorry, Christina, sorry, I forgot your name then. Does anybody, I think what we'll do is we'll just stop for a minute and ask if anybody has any specific questions on anything that Christina has just said there. And if not, you think of anything later, that's fine to come in at a later time, but I'll just wait. Does anybody have any specific questions on what Christina's just discussed? No? Okay, I'm happy to hand back over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, that was obviously a lot of information thrown at you then. There is a summary of what Christina just said as Appendix B to the report. But obviously if you have any questions, we can we welcome you to contact either myself or Christina directly with any queries. So in which case then we move on to Mark Barber, who will outline where we are with the Section 6 plan. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, hi there. So I'm Mark Barber, the Biodiversity Officer in the Nature Conservation Team. So my role is a 2.5-day-a-week permanent position, as well as being the LNP coordinator with Christina the other half of my time. The biodiversity officer role links directly to the council's Section 6 duty under the Environment Act Wales 2016. So that means that public authorities must seek to maintain and enhance biodiversity in the exercise of their functions and promote the resilience of ecosystems, which directly connects to the Resilient Wales goal in the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, with biodiversity being essential to increase capacity to climate change. So the authority has a legal duty to report to the Welsh Government on how they are achieving their Section 6 duty every 3 years, and then must produce a plan for the future 3 years. We made it clear in the Nature Recovery and Climate Change corporate wellbeing objective that we will develop, adopt and implement a corporate biodiversity Section 6 plan in line with Welsh Government's 3-year reporting cycle. This Section 6 plan sits under the local nature recovery action plan that Christina just summarised. We are due to submit our January 2020 to December 2022 report in the coming months. We will then submit our plan for 2023 to 2025 in the new year. A questionnaire was sent out to all heads of service in September to get feedback on thoughts from their teams, which we had a positive response. So we're really hoping to integrate this duty into every service area in the council so that it becomes the norm to try and enhance biodiversity every time an officer does anything within their duty. So while these reports and plans have been developing, our team hasn't been idle. We've secured multiple grants to actually implement action on the ground, such as the Welsh Government's Local Places for Nature grant and the Enabling Natural Resources and Wellbeing grant. This has been really useful when working with other teams in the council to show we can offer funding to implement work on the ground, especially when their budgets are tight. A few examples include quite recently working with the external wall insulation team who are currently insulating council houses across Swansea. So there was an opportunity to trial installing bird and bat boxes on some of the houses while the scaffolding was undertaking this essential work. So this is a great example of biodiversity enhancement that is integrated into existing work plans. And then another example is working with Jane Richmond, the Climate Change Manager, on the Climate Change and Nature Recovery introductory modules, which are through the StaffNet electronic learning pool website. So more modules will follow, including a more detailed nature recovery specific module. And so these are designed for all our officers as well as councillors. And finally, and other examples including making sure that we're planting the right tree in the right place, increasing the amount of native wildflowers across Swansea, and improving the condition of our protected sites. So that's it from me. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I do have a quick question. You did mention that you submitted a questionnaire, I think, to heads of service, wasn't it? And you'd had some great feedback. Can you just elaborate on just some of the feedback that you've received and just explain a little bit more about the aim, I suppose?
So the main aim of the questionnaire was to firstly try and get all of the information from all the different service areas as to what they have been doing over the last 3 years. And then it was to try and get ideas from them for what other new things we might be able to implement in the coming 3 years if funding and resources allow. So I guess one example was the fact that we've been doing quite a lot of work with parks, and they've been trialing increasing the amount of wildflowers on a lot of our amenity grassland areas. So we had quite a positive relationship that's come out, and that was reported well in the questionnaire.
Thank you. I think it's a question really for both yourself and Christina. It's in terms of monitoring and collecting data. Obviously, Shrewsbury is used as a source. Are there other things that you use to collect data to monitor the improvements in biodiversity? Are you using things like Mammal Mapper or working with other organisations to collect more data, just to see to prove that the biodiversity is increasing or being protected or restored?
Christina, do you want me to take that, or do you want to?
Yeah, you start and then I'll add on if there's anything.
Yeah, so I mean, so there's a lot of great recording and monitoring that's going on to actually document how our biodiversity is doing. But I guess from our perspectives in terms of our plans, that's something that we're working on at the minute, is to try and actually how we best record all of these actions that we're undertaking, because obviously it's great to record when we're finding animals and if that particular bird population is increasing, but what we really need to document is what we're doing and whether that's having a positive effect. So yeah, we're hoping to have a better monitoring scheme set up, at least internally within the council, to make sure that we're recording what we're doing. Yes, so I guess that's it from the council side. So I don't know if Christina wants to talk about what we were looking at for the NRAP.
Yeah, so in terms of, so similar to what Mark was saying, in terms of the NRAP, like it's in some ways beyond our capability to kind of do detailed assessments of nature recovery in Swansea. That's kind of more, that would be kind of more like, I guess, like that would be more like NRW's realm in terms of assessing that level of change. But what we are planning to do for the local nature recovery plan is to try and record partner actions and potentially log them on a GIS system, because then you can at least correlate them to the spatial scales. And we've got the ecological resilience report for Swansea, so we can use that then to kind of identify if there are areas of lacking in resilience, which we're perhaps not working in. So it'll be that sort of level of keeping track of our actions as a primary objective.
Sarah, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it was a question for Mark and Christina, probably more Mark. We were talking about wildflowers when you came around with us, and you said the problem was how we have to take care of them. And that's the cut and collect, we call it, don't you? Where the grasses have to be removed at certain times so that it doesn't feed the ground and encourage more grass and at the problems with the flowers coming. We chased it up and we found there wasn't any council workers actually doing that. How do we go about getting, if as Mumbles we want to do more cut and collect, but it's very hard work and we need the council to work along with us. Any suggestions?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know that at the moment, I know Cyril Anderson and Andrew Stevens are looking at ways of collecting grass going forward. I know that it's been proven that there are some issues in our parks where we use meadowing, but it isn't always good for biodiversity and habitat. So there is a bit of work going on behind the scenes. I don't think it's ready yet, but there is some work taking place with Chris Howells' department.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Did anybody else want to come in, or are you happy with that response, Sarah? Yeah.
No, that's fine, unless Mark or Christina has anything else to add.
All I was going to say is that, yeah, as was just mentioned, there is work going on within the council. Our nature conservation team and parks have been working together, and we've got 5 cut and collect machines that we are undertaking trials with. So it is happening, but it's a slow process to make sure that we get it right and we don't kind of run before we can walk.
Thank you.
Okay. So the third strategy that we're going to talk about this evening is the county-wide strategy. It's following on from central area green infrastructure strategy, which is adopted by the council last year, and it links actually to the action plan, which is included for information as an appendix to the report. I'll hand over to Penny now to explain in more detail.
Hi, thanks very much, Paul. So I thought I would sort of break my information for you into 2 bits. One around the action plan, which, as Paul says, is mentioned in Appendix C. And then secondly, what we're now looking at doing with the county-wide strategy. So the city centre strategy was adopted in February 2021. It's a non-mandatory strategy, but it sets out a vision for the city to have a high-quality, multifunctional GI, which delivers resilience, prosperity, nature, health, well-being and happiness to the citizens and visitors of Swansea. And this was a strategy that was really shaped. It was a collaborative joint partnership between the council and NRW, but it was very much shaped, the vision and our strategic objectives were very much shaped by some extensive stakeholder engagement with a plethora of people, including face-to-face conversations with over 630 members of the public. We had sessions with local businesses, developers, architects, landscapers, public sector staff, councillors, primary school children in the catchment area, and lots of local groups as well. And we did some engagement on social media as well. And the action plan that came out of that was a reflection of the targets that are in that strategy, the strategic objectives which are in the strategy. And what the action plan actually does, it's a standalone document which enables us to regularly update it and respond to the opportunities and challenges that we have in this very fast moving industry, particularly obviously with the nature of the nature and climate change emergencies. It's also designed to deliver in the short, medium and long term, and as I say, to reflect those targets in the strategy. Again, it was developed in partnership with the Council and Natural Resources Wales, and it will be delivered in partnership as well, along with a number of stakeholders, including the PSB partners and local businesses. In the council itself, the action plan is delivered across a number of services, but is overseen by myself as part of the nature conservation team. What I wanted to do now is just to give you some ideas. So because we had this very open engagement process, what actually happened is a lot of learning went through that process. And whilst we were actually designing the strategy and finishing the strategy off, people were actually starting to deliver it, which is really exciting. So what we've got is just some examples of how the strategy is already in action. As we've got the green wall on the coastal park, we've actually got the coastal park itself, which is effectively the largest green roof in Wales. We've got green walls and green roofs on the Environment Centre, a green roof on the coastal offices in High Street. There's the green wall on Potter's Wheel. There's the biophilic living at Picton Yard, which was very much shaped by the work because they were designing that at the same time that we were working on the strategy. And there's more recently the planting outside Swansea Station, the pop-up park, and then more recently the green bins on St Helens Road as well. Going back a little bit, there's also the green roof on Morriston Post Office and the work that's been done on 7172 the Kingsway, which will be an intensive green roof. So the action plan has really allowed us to realise a lot of the strategic objectives, and will continue to do so, and the vision that the strategy sets out. It also delivers against a number of our local and national policies, including things like the Council's Local Development Plan, the zero carbon aspirations, the biodiversity action plan, so it links in with what Mark and Chrissy have been talking about, the council's duties to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and the Environment Act, the application of our SUD standard, and then obviously the public service boards working with nature objective as well. One of the three themes that really came out of the engagement work, and therefore is reflected in the strategic objectives, was the need to build a local GI economy with and to reflect and to address the knowledge and skills gap that was felt by stakeholders that we had in Swansea. So this year, using the Community Renewal Fund and working with partners, again, Natural Resources Wales and Urban Foundry, over the last 6 weeks, we've delivered 4 seminars to local SMEs on living walls and green roofs. That's like over 50 people in total have taken part in that training, and that includes 12 small to medium businesses who have actually now on their way to being fully accredited green roof fitters by actually participating in a Lantra course. So that's really exciting, and over the next 6 months as they develop a portfolio, they will be fully accredited installed green roof fitters, or green roof installers, sorry. We've got another 6 seminars coming up over the next 6 weeks, looking at street trees, rain planters, GI maintenance and SUDs. And the variety of people who have attended those courses include people from the construction, landscape and garden scene industry, horticulture, green infrastructure, estate management, design, etc. And we're seeing SMEs really looking, and businesses really looking to diversify on their existing offer, and seeing the green infrastructure as part of that green recovery opportunity that they can really sort of maximize their offer for, which is really exciting for Swansea. So that's the bit about looking at the action plan and one of the actions that has come out of the action plan. Do you want me to pause there and see if anybody has questions before I go on to the county-wide strategy?
Yes, please. Does anybody have any questions just on those actions first? Anybody does? Okay.
Yeah, can I just say that I think this is everybody's responsibility. We keep saying this, right? But it's nice to see the private sector buying into it. There's no doubt, you know, it's not just our job. Lots of people out there are looking at it. And one of the things we do, particularly on the Swansea Regeneration Board, that we sit and we help people set up with grants and sometimes interest-free loans. What we try to do is encourage the green infrastructure, look at green walls, green roofs, and it's looking quite successful. I've got to say we are doing really well within the city centre. But as you say, this is a county-wide initiative, not just the city centre. But I lead by example, as I think, and it is so nice to see that, as I say, it's not just us doing it. People are looking to do this. There's quite a large hotel with a planning permission in at the moment that is going to put quite a significant green roof they're looking at, and also a green wall. So it's not just us, and I think it's great to see that. And what I would say, NRW, I've often said, say one or two people within NRW, really see the work that we are doing in the city as leading on these things. You know, our SDP, what do you call it, planning guidance, that the SPG that we use in, you know, it's a tool that is in place. It's an active tool to try to encourage this green development. So lots going on, but thank you for all your efforts on that, Penny. It is don't go unrecognised.
Thank you. Shall I go on with the county-wide strategy then?
Yes, please. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So to be honest, when we first wanted to look at green infrastructure and taking a more sort of joined up approach with Natural Resources Wales, we did initially talk about doing a county-wide strategy. And I think what happened back in 2019 is we became very aware, or 2018, 2019, of the opportunities that we had in the city centre. So we focused first on the city centre strategy, and now we're focusing on a wider county-wide strategy. We started the engagement work for this in 2020, in February 2020, actually, when unfortunately, obviously, we had to be halted due to the COVID pandemic, because we really wanted the face-to-face conversations. We really got a value out of that when we did the engagement work on the in 2019 on the city centre strategy. So where we are now is we had managed to run, before we went into lockdown, we'd managed to run a stakeholder event on developing a green infrastructure strategy for the whole of the county. And we'd focused on the rural, the suburban and the urban parts of the county, so splitting the parts of the county up into 3 different areas, because obviously the types of green infrastructure that you need to look at in those 3 different types of the or areas in the county are sort of quite specific. So we had a really good basis to sort of springboard from over this summer. So what we're really doing at the moment is we are now going into, you know, we're in the middle of doing the engagement to sort of follow on from what we did in early 22. And again, this is a complete collaboration between the council and NRW. So that's a completely joint document that we're writing, and it will ultimately hopefully be adopted by both organisations. With the engagement work, again, we're looking at a mixture of workshops with stakeholders, the public sector, the private sector, the third sector, and we've also doing a lot of work out on the streets in our urban and suburban hubs and our rural communities, and talking to people about it's a conversation really around what nature in your space means to you, and what we get from that is a feeling of or conversations about the barriers and the opportunities and the expectations and the needs. And we will use that information to write a county-wide strategy and set a vision and a set of strategic objectives for that, underpinned by an awful lot of fact and knowledge about what green infrastructure means and what it can offer. So that's what we're aiming to do with the county-wide strategy. Looking forward, we're looking to produce a draft strategy in the new year, with the hope of getting it signed off to go out to consultation as a draft strategy around April, May time, and to go out to consultation then over the summer. So that's the timeline that we're looking to deliver the county-wide strategy in. And what I guess to preempt any questions about the relationship about the two documents, fundamentally we see the city centre strategy would become part of an appendix to or a chapter of the county-wide strategy, because obviously it is an integral part of it, and very much the city centre picks up the urban element of what we're trying to achieve. But we need to obviously branch that out to take in the diversity of our communities and our habitats and our ecology across the whole of the county. So that's me.
Oh, thank you very much for that. You did preempt my question, actually. I was going to ask about the city centre and how that would evolve or lead into the county-wide strategy. So thank you for that. Just on that then, does anybody have any questions? So I'll ask Stuart first, and then I'll call you in then, Ryland, okay?
Thank you, Penny. I just wanted to add to one of the points we were speaking about earlier. It's really impressive that if you've got a dozen people clued up and ready to do green roofs, that's brilliant. Just to move on to what you were talking about just now, in terms of the green infrastructure, I think there are a couple of key themes that I think are really important. There's some great stuff that's happened in the city centre, and there's plans obviously for more of that to happen in the next few months and years ahead with the biophilic idea for the city, which I think is a great one. It's a bit like Singapore or something like that. They've tried that before. I think when you go onto the countrywide, county-wide strategy, the key issue really is bioconnectivity for me, making sure that the areas are connected and remain connected. And that leaves a really important question for planning, for future LDPs, UDPs, and other planning documents, to make sure that we do have those bioconnectivities and that green infrastructure involved in, and they are protected, because there are key areas. You know, you want a whole river system or a whole area to be protected. And I think there's an opportunity there in terms of 106 agreements, so that if you wanted to have a whole approach for a whole river system, for instance, that you could protect areas which aren't suitable for development, which the council could take on or see as a 106 development gain. I think we could be a bit more creative about how we look at that for the future, which would be great if, you know, to see us do that. I think when it comes to the urban environment, there are some quite interesting organisations out there at the moment who are trying to sort of green urban spaces in the sort of outside of the city centre. I know, for example, there are a lot of schools still in Swansea which have just got concrete playgrounds, and I know there are a number of organisations out there, including one that's worked locally with me called Green Scene, which local people have designed and put things in Bryn Mill School. But I know there are lots of organisations like that, and I think it's finding those opportunities to build that connectivity, especially between the local parks that people have in areas, green spaces that we can try and improve. And I think if we can do something like that, that would be really useful. And yeah, it sounds great. And if we can get that bioconnectivity together, that will really enhance biodiversity and its resilience, I think.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think also the relationship not only across our county about that bioconnectivity, but it's also about our relationship with our neighbouring authorities as well, because obviously, you know, nature doesn't adhere to our boundaries, and so, you know, that whole relationship between our neighbouring authorities and the catchments that we're in, and how we all, you know, we form part of the same Towie River catchment, is also really important. And we are working with our colleagues to sort of get that connectivity across the boundaries as well as across the county. And again, you know, we don't want to do it in isolation as two organisations. We're very, very keen to work, and the council's very, very keen to work with as many different organisations as possible, because, you know, that's as you've said, it's very, very key that everybody's involved and everybody benefits and enjoys and is also responsible for making that change. And we have 5 principles of green infrastructure in the city centre strategy, which I hope and suspect will carry through to the county strategy, but that will depend upon the engagement process. But they are really around enhancing nature, about biodiversity, they're about multifunctionality, so sort of busy nature getting as much as we can. They're about adapting to climate change, they're about people's health. And the 5th one is around sustainable and smart ways of addressing what we're doing. And absolutely, the communities totally form part of all of those principles, but in particular, the smart and sustainable one.
Thank you. Ryland, do you want to come in?
Yeah, but Sarah's had a hand up for several minutes. So do you want to deal with Sarah first, because she's been a bit
Thank you,
stressed.
Ryland.
Yeah, of course, Sarah, I'm really sorry, I didn't see it. Yeah, of course.
It's
come
okay,
in.
I've had one go. But anyway, I just wanted to ask, because I think, Penny, it's brilliant that these private businesses are coming forward, because that's the way to win hearts and minds, isn't it? I was just wondering, would we get to a stage where, I don't know if we do it already, I'd be quite ignorant about it, where we actually, you know, if a business is willing to put a green wall in, a green roof and all the other environmental things they can do, are they more likely to pass planning? Could they get some sort of financial tax help? That would, I think, push it forward a bit further, wouldn't it? Especially in these days. Any idea if that will be in the horizon?
So I think Councillor Hopkins talked about the Transforming Towns grant, I guess it is, grant scheme that comes from Welsh Government. Now, there's a GI element in there, and that I think has been really useful and really powerful in helping to support small businesses or big businesses, some, local businesses, to actually get green infrastructure on their buildings. So absolutely, there's that element of it. I think also as well, we're working in partnership through some of the grant schemes that we have, like the Local Places for Nature scheme, which is a grant scheme that our team is currently working with stakeholders and partners around Swansea on, and again the NROR as well, which is another grant scheme that have come from Welsh Government. And both of those schemes give us the chance to work with small to medium-sized enterprises, local businesses, a range of people on greening, and it can be as big as a green roof. It can be as small as a downpipe disconnector, which just basically takes water off your roof and puts it through a garden that supports biodiversity. So there's a range of things we can do, from quite small projects to quite big projects. So absolutely, there are things that we can do in terms of the planning system. We had a very multidisciplinary steering group that oversaw the development of the strategy, and strategic planning and development management were both members of that steering group. So that, and as I said, it's really integrated within the LDP, and particularly the policy ER2, which is our Strategic Green Infrastructure Network policy. So we are using, we are using the planning system, and the planning system is definitely supporting businesses to do it. Whether we can offer enhancements, maybe that's something for the future. I'm not sure what we can do, but what we're definitely doing is that as a council, in terms of planning, is helping businesses to understand that, but also using supplementary planning guidance for biodiversity to sort of help demonstrate why it's really important in meeting our nature and our climate change emergency, and to give it that the planning support for businesses to do that. And I guess then the other side of that is the whole knowledge economy element, which is where we skill up and we create both a demand and a supply at the same time, so that we've got local businesses who can capitalize on that demand as it grows, particularly around, as I say, the installation of green infrastructure, but also the maintenance of it, because that tends to be the ongoing opportunities for gardeners and landscapers and small businesses that can actually really provide that, and also as well that local knowledge about the provenance of the type of species that we want and the type of plants as part of our green infrastructure, so that we are celebrating and replicating our ecology, which is where it really then relates to the sort of the bioconnectivity that councillor, mental block, the councillor who just spoke a minute ago was referring to. Thank you, Councillor Rice. I knew who it was and I couldn't get the words out. My apologies, Councillor Rice. That Councillor Rice was referring to.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning that gardens don't just finish, they continue. Thank you.
There we go. Ryland,
thank you, Ryland.
Thank you.
To come in now?
Yeah, thanks. In the last bit of the presentation, you mentioned about aligning things with neighbouring local authorities, and my sort of ears pricked up at that, because my ward is Llansamlet, and we've got 5 residential streets which merge into Neathborough Talbot, and surrounded that is acres of countryside which also merge into Neathborough Talbot. So I was going to ask some questions about, are the plans that we are talking about today aligned with Neathborough Talbot? Because it would be a bit strange if we had these streets and these acres of countryside where you had a sort of completely different regime operating just down the road? Because we've already got very different recycling regimes between Neath and Swansea. And in those 5 residential streets that I mentioned, you get to a certain point and you cross the borough boundary and you've got a very different recycling regime. And that's a sort of a source of irritation, if you like, for people, because people think, well, it's only once, 50 yards of street, why can't we have the same recycling, etc. So I just wondered if these type of nature recovery plans are aligned and whether the officers here today meet their counterparts in Neath Talbot.
So in terms of the GI strategy, and I mentioned the NROR grant, which is a WEFO grant that's come from Welsh Government. Now we're doing that as a partnership, and the partners for that are Swansea Council, Neath Talbot Council, Carmarthen Council, Carmarthen Community Council, and Small Woods. So obviously one of the benefits of a project like that is the ability to share ideas and to sort of, and to sort of talk to each other and understand where each other's local authority, sort of local authorities are looking at, what their interests are. I mean, obviously they're a little bit different. Is that Swansea, we obviously have a lot of coastal environment that we need to consider in what we're doing, and obviously Neath Talbot have got sort of like different needs around their geographic and community makeup. But we are definitely talking, and that's been one of the benefits of this, but not only talking as local authorities, but also talking to people like Small Woods, our colleagues in Small Woods, and obviously NRW, and sharing that information more widely. So yes, in terms of around green infrastructure, there is definitely conversations. Whether we will completely align, I can't promise that, but we're all sharing our knowledge, learning from each other, and I would say we're all moving in the very same direction. But obviously, we represent different communities, so there are going to be different pressures that we need to build in and different aspirations. But we very much are working together. I'm sure probably Mark and Chrissy have a view on how they work with their counterparts as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll just jump in for us. So in terms of the local nature recovery plan, so LNP coordinators as a whole, so all around Wales, there's LNP coordinators in every local authority and national park in Wales. We meet every 2 weeks as a group virtually, and we either share recent ongoings in terms of projects or ask each other questions. And yeah, we've read in preparation for writing the Swansea local nature recovery plan. We read through all of the local nature recovery plans that have been published in other counties, and that has included our bordering counties, so Carmarthenshire and Neath Talbot.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is that okay, Ryland?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, I just have another question, but I think I took a couple of notes down from what you said, but I think I've written them down incorrectly, so just please correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned that you'd done some engagement, and one of the questions you asked was what nature feels to them, and you'd noted that there were quite some differences with the responses that you'd had. So I'm just wondering what the differences were that you'd had, and were there any similarities as well, and how are you going to mitigate against that with a county-wide strategy then?
So with the city centre strategy, our hashtag, if you like, was city nature, and the question was that particularly with our street engagement was very much around city nature. What does nature in the city mean to you? And we got four themes out of that, and one was about the physical nature, so birds, butterflies, more flowers, more plants, less grey, more green. One of the other themes we had physical. We had one which was very much around people's emotional relationship with nature in the city centre. So we had a lot of comments around calmness and tranquility. We had parents talking about how it gives them place to sort of, for their children to run around a little bit when they're shopping, to have a bit of a break from going in and out of shops. We had people talking about wanting space oasis of calm where they could sit to have their lunch. And in fact, we talked to the Young Architects group at St Helens Primary School, and they were really keen on sort of quite interactive nature and the opportunity for nature in the city centre to be quite interactive. We had one individual who talked about rivers of nature flowing through the city centre between the oasis of our surrounding wildlife corridors. So we had there was a lot around the emotional and the health and well-being element, which you know, and the way that nature can sort of feed that for the residents and visitors and can sort of help with dwell time, etc. That was really interesting. So we had our physical, we had our emotional. We then had a theme all around opportunity. So a lot of people talked about what they'd like to see more of, which is a lot of what I've spoken about already, but it was more nature, more plants, more trees, more blue infrastructure as well as green infrastructure. So it was about waterways as well. And then we had one which was around loss and a sense of loss. And there was a lot of conversation around what they felt had been lost from the city centre over time. And that was quite an interesting conversation because it was quite generational, and it did sort of bring in a lot of different views around Castle Gardens and how it had changed over time and how people felt about those changes, which was a really interesting conversation about how that might have tied in with what they wanted around, or what they felt was important to the city around access to nature and the well-being aspect. So that's what we had for the city centre. And then on top of that, from our work with professional stakeholders, we had themes around, there was one theme that was around leadership, and that was about leadership from the public sector organisations, but also leadership from everybody. So there was a real understanding of responsibility for everybody around leadership, the role of maintenance, and understanding that maintenance is not just about no maintenance, it's around nurturing, and how we might maintain things differently as we go forward as a society in our nature. And then the third key theme was around the knowledge and skills gap, which is what we, I was using the example of what we've been doing with the Community Renewal Fund. Now, what we're seeing so far so our question, if you like, that we're engaging people around is nature in my space. So it's all around Cynefin and the idea of habitat and nature. And so our question there so far, and we're not at the end, obviously, so we don't want to completely review it, but we're seeing the same comments come out around skills, knowledge and education. So more around education more widely, rather than just knowledge and skills to actually provide those services. So a strong one around education, a strong one around connectivity. Connectivity has been a very strong theme. And again, I think we're starting to sort of see probably maintenance, I think, will come in as well, and again around leadership and access to that information. So again, I think we're seeing the same develop, but we're waiting on the stakeholder engagement, the street stakeholder engagement. Hopefully that'll be done by November, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see what we get out of that, and if we get similar themes to the ones that we had in 2019. Does that answer your question? Sorry,
oh yeah,
like
absolutely. Thank you. No, you didn't. No, that was great. Thank you. Sorry, it just took me a while to press my camera on, but yeah, no, thank you for that. So Ryland, I think is there a legacy hand, or have you put your hand up?
No, it's a legacy. Sorry.
No problem. Sorry. And Sarah, did I see your hand going up and down, and then, or was it a legacy?
It was me messing with the computer trying to put it down. Sorry.
I ignored you last time, so I've been watching the monitor like a hawk, just not to do it again. But oh no, thank you for that. So does anybody else have any more questions or anything else that they'd like to add to any of the discussion? Okay, Stuart.
Just a small but I think quite important point. It's funding, really, because there's a lot of great ideas, and I know that we've mentioned a number of different governmental agencies that have helped and have assisted with some of the plans we've got. It's just what the local authority is looking to do going forward, and if there's any ideas about how it might fund the action plans and the things that it wants to do.
So the action plan for the city centre strategy, as I said, that's managed by within the nature conservation team, or me, if you like, and the wider nature conservation team, as far as the council's concerned, and it's overseen by Fran Rolfe, who is the GI officer at NRW for our region. In terms of funding, as I said, it's there are the grant schemes that I've spoken about. I think we are seeing more grants have become available in the years that I've been working on this, which is a positive thing. But I think as well, and this is something that we tried really hard to do with the city centre strategy, was to demonstrate the good economic sense in using green infrastructure. So there's a plethora of evidence about the benefits to having green infrastructure to help with things like evapotranspiration, so cooling buildings. So if you have green on grey, if you like, when buildings are very, very hot, it evapotranspires and you actually can cool the temperature down surrounding the area. And some amazing thermal heat maps from I think the one I've seen that really stands out is in Tokyo, where you can see the green roof is like nearly 10 degrees cooler, from 40 down to the 30s for an area where it's evapotranspiring. And I've spoken to colleagues and businesses who work with street trees, and saying that they've actually mapped the evapotranspiration benefits of Hyde Park in London, and it can affect the surrounding area of up to a mile away from around that park. So, the cooling is really important, and the counter side to that is obviously the warming, because in the winter, obviously, you're getting an extra layer of protection around your building with green roofs and green walls. So there's benefits there. The health and wellbeing benefits are obviously massive, and that's where we can really work with, I think the social prescribing is something that's very, very, the people are becoming more and more aware of. And then obviously, and not at all to play down, the biodiversity benefits of actually getting more nature in the city, and the benefits to connectivity that creates for basically, supporting what is our support system that we all need. And then just to sort of pick up on some of the others, I don't want to keep going on, but there's also loads of flood benefits. So you can use green infrastructure to reduce the amount of water that's coming off our surfaces and going down into our drainage systems, which I quite often are like is trying to get your 18-year-old son into his 5-year-old clothes. That's how we're overloading our 200-year-old drainage system. So any way that we can use green infrastructure to help reduce the flow with suds trees and rain gardens and rain planters is all really important for addressing that. Yeah, I think I'm probably am starting to ramble now, but yeah, so there's huge benefits, and I think what we need to do is possibly think about the way that we consider our building performance and the role of green infrastructure and ecosystem services to help us address that. And that's where the multifunctionality is so important. So when we fit a green roof, we want a really good, high quality green roof that creates a amenity for people to go and walk on, if it's going to be an intensive green roof with access, that, sort of supports biodiversity and is a pollinator highway for our birds and our bees and our insects. It creates shelter. It's evapotranspiring, and it's helping to keep buildings warm in the winter. There's so many added benefits, and for me, that's where we really need to be. We need to move away from seeing it as a nice to have add-on to seeing it as part of the infrastructure that helps make that building fit for the future, or that town fit for the future, or that development fit for the future.
Thank you for that, Penny. I think Councillor Rice wants to come back in, but I did want to say that I don't think you're rambling at all. I think that your knowledge on this subject is fantastic, but we can see that you're really enthusiastic about it as well. So it's actually really nice to listen to.
The point I wanted to, I suppose, make or sort of force home is that I think that we should be spending more money from the council on this directly to match what's available from other government agencies. I know that obviously there's lots of pressures, but this is a key area. Just with climate change, they go hand in hand. There are benefits by spending money now on things that will actually save you money long term.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, look, I would support that. We've been in years and years of austerity. League One, I think it was called. We're in League Two now of austerity after today's budget. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, we lead by example. I think what we're doing on the British Home Schools building, green roof, green wall, trying to do as much as we possibly can. Lead by example. But if the central government gives the money to do so, then we obviously can make that money go a lot further from local government. So any help we can get from Welsh Government or national government, we would certainly do that. One thing we're good at is getting grants, and I mentioned just one was the Regeneration Board that sit and that is away from the council that we make these decisions, but is very much led on green issues. And I'm really proud of that action. So yeah, get the point. If we could do more, we will. But that's why we sit in here, I hope, to actually, make that change sustainable going forward.
we are doing an awful lot. I mean, we had Chris Bridgman, who's from a company called Bridgman and Bridgman, who was down doing our green roof training a couple of weeks ago. And he was saying, so London is where they are further forward than us, really on green roofs in particular, and that's what his specialism is. But he said that people in London are talking about what Swansea Council, in working with NRW, is achieving in Swansea around not just the physical installation, but the wider elements. And you know, I thought that was really positive. That made me feel really chuffed.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I have seen you.
I
Do you
know,
wanna
I'm
come
sorry,
in?
I promise this is the last one, Penny, and I will shut up then. Councillor Rice quite touched on it, but it's schools and school grounds, they're vast. If we got in there and we put stuff in like, you know, the SUD stuff, they've got enormous roofs, why don't we do green roofs or solar panels on there for them to help be self-sustainable? Is there any chance in the future of doing that? Or are you already doing it?
So I mean, the nature conservation team have worked a lot with schools for many, many years. And, you know, we did 3 or 4 years ago, just before lockdown, we went out and we worked with 12 of the schools in the most need of green infrastructure, and we got some designs drawn up for that under another scheme that we had. It was called Our Nature, Our Future at the time, and we have worked with a number of the schools to actually put that green infrastructure in for them, and they range from, you know, their planters, etc. And we've done some work in our parks as well. So I mean, I think and Karen Jones, who's one of the members of the team, she works very hard with schools around inset, through the inset system, and also getting the children out in nature, but also talking about the improvements that they can make. So we absolutely are looking at that. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The schools do offer a huge opportunity because you've got the green infrastructure actually there, and you're also educating at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And we are, you know, we're keen to try and cover it all. And some of the schools, I mean, as I said, when we went and spoke to St Helens, and we spent like an hour, Fran and I spent an hour with their Young Architects Club, and they were just so knowledgeable. They were so knowledgeable, and they were talking about cousins who lived in London that were down the road from a green wall and stuff. So, you know, I think it's something that the younger generation are really, really aware of. And if we can build that more and more into the education, then that bodes well for the likes of me when I get old.
Thank you, Penny, once again. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Deborah, did you have your hand up? And then I've noticed it's gone down, so I just wanted to know if you wanted to come in.
Yeah, thanks. No, there were a couple of points, and then they kind of like moved on to the next point, so I just backed down. But no, I think, you know, great. Really pleased with the conversations and the presentations from my team. And just to say, I think, but all three of these strategies really, I mean, Stuart, absolutely right. Delivery is the key. We're running out of time to turn this thing around with climate and nature emergency. So we really do need to focus as much as we can on delivery. And I think, as Mark said and Penny's indicated, you know, it's not like all of our team are just focusing on strategies, but the strategies provide the framework to enable that participation and buy-in from the wider range of stakeholders, because, you know, as has been said, we can't do it on our own. We need to maximise and be efficient about the resources that are out there so that we can actually make a difference. And I think, you know, in the short to medium term, grant aid is great because, you know, it helps to support pilot projects, but at the end of the day, what we need is the sustainable management of natural resources, the circular economy. You know, it should really not rely on grants but pay for itself. But at the moment, we're in that kind of intermediate stage where we are relying on short-term grant funding to demonstrate how things can work. And hopefully, you know, as that becomes more apparent, we will move to a situation which will be more sustainable. So yeah, just a few points there. And I think, you know, the monitoring, the recording is really important, and the sharing of information across boundaries. Everything is now very much GIS based. So, you know, Welsh Government, the area statements, NRW, the council, other organisations, we're all sharing data, and it's all being mapped on a in a way that everyone can kind of use a common framework. So I think there's, you know, lots of good stuff happening, but, you know, we just need to really make the delivery happen more quickly, because we are clearly running out of time.
Thank you for that, Deb. Sarah, is your hand up again, or is it a legacy hand? Just wanted to.
Sorry, it's
No,
just,
it's okay. No, it's fine. So does anybody else want to come in? Anybody have another question? Okay, so I'll bring Paul back in. I assume you just wanted to conclude and close. Before you do, I just wanted to thank Christina, Mark, and Penny for coming here and explaining this to us and talking about your, the aims overall of your strategies and, the approaches that you're all taking. So really do appreciate it. Sorry if I'm stepping on your toes there, Paul, if you wanted to give a thank you.
Yes, no, I would like to thank my colleagues for sort of giving us that overview of the strategies we're working on at the moment. They are higher level, and as I say, we've only sort of touched upon the detail tonight. Sitting underneath those and informing them, there's a lot of other plans and projects ongoing, and I was listening to Penny then, I was thinking of, she's got a particularly difficult task with sort of tying a lot of the work that's been delivered on the ground into the strategy, the green infrastructure strategy, to ensure that it is joined up, because you've got documents such as the Gower A&B management plan, Clyne Valley Country Park, Pentlegare, all these plans, management plans for local nature reserve, they all feed up into that strategy. So it's a bit of a top down and bottom up approach, and a lot of those projects are in themselves bringing in funding. They all have their action plans as well. So there's a number of different layers to all of this. So I don't know how best on the back of this. I mean, whether the members of the committee would like to sort of, like, you've met some of the team now. We can provide further information, provide their contact details. Don't be afraid to sort of approach them directly for further information. If you've got particular ideas, there's ongoing work. We've got green space officers looking about how to sort of green up wards, and they'll be in touch with members if they haven't already. So I say there is a lot of work going on, and the team are at capacity, really. I mean, there is, and we'd like to deliver a lot more, but they're doing as much as they can, and bringing in, as Deb said, is bringing in a lot of money at the moment, but we are concerned that it is very much sort of short-term stopgap. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So unless anybody wants to, okay, David.
Yeah, can I say thank you? Many years ago, I was part of my portfolio was nature and working very close with Deb Hill. But I got to say, it's fantastic to be back at the, I've only left for a short period of time, but even in that short period of time, the last 12 months, the amount of change that's taken place, the amount of thing, it's not us doing it, it's not us as the council doing it, it's with others. It's always, we're not doing it for others, it's with others. And I think with all the partners on board that we've got, around the city, it's a fantastic journey we're on. And I think Deb Hill has seen a remarkable change in the shift. She used to constantly nag for these things. Now it's happening, and it didn't just happen. It's for the likes of Deb Hill and other people within this council that have worked for a long, long time to make it a big issue and for Swansea, but at national level. And I'm really proud of what we are achieving on the ground. And to a place like London are looking to us, so that's fantastic, in my opinion. So well done to the team. I'm really, really proud and happy to be back after this short break. So thank you.
Yeah, I won't repeat myself, but obviously you heard me saying I echo what Councillor Hopkins says there. Okay, so if there's nothing else on that agenda item, then so again, thank you very much for delivering just a flavour of a little tiny bit of a flavour of the work that you do day to day. Just to go into the next agenda item then, which I believe is agenda item 5. Oh, actually, sorry, there is a recommendation. Can I just ask if the committee agrees with the proposed forward plan of activity for nature recovery as we've seen it for 2022-23, and that it aligns with the steps identified for delivery of the new corporate wellbeing objective, delivery on nature recovery and climate change. So this is a recommendation, I believe. So we just, yeah, so if somebody could propose. So that would be Councillor Matthews. And then if I could have a seconder, thank you, Councillor Rice. And then I would need all in favour? Yes? Is anyone against? Any abstentions? No? Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, I forgot. Just moving on to the final agenda item then. Nothing in addition to add other than the next item for discussion is going to be the waste strategy. So I believe that will be on the 21st of November, our next meeting. Okay. Yes. So if there's nothing else to add. Can I just see, oh, Hannah, I believe, do you have your hand up, Hannah? Sorry.
No, sorry, it's fine. It's just a bit of a lag from agreeing to the proposal.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you for your attendance, everyone, and I shall see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.